All right. So getting ready for a technical interview, it's kind of like, a mental obstacle course, right? Especially when it's for a company like as prestigious as Stripe, the stakes feel so high.
Yeah, it's pretty intimidating.
You're in good company. We know you're probably gearing up for this. So
Yeah.
we are diving deep into this Algo Academy blog post. It's all about mastering the Stripe interview, and we're going to help you nail it.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this post is it really emphasizes uh, understanding the whole process,
Right.
not just like the technical stuff.
Totally.
It's like having a roadmap,
Yeah.
before you even pack your bags.
Exactly. So what is that roadmap? What are the typical stages of a Stripe interview?
Okay, so usually it kicks off with a quick screening call
Mm.
or maybe an online assessment,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of gauge your basic skills.
Okay.
And then it usually moves to a technical phone interview
Right.
to dig a little deeper.
Makes sense. And then is it the on-site? Or I guess maybe virtual these days. Is that when it's the real deal?
Yeah, that's where things get pretty intense.
Yeah.
Usually multiple interviewers,
Yeah.
coding challenges, probably some system design scenarios thrown in there too.
Wow.
Yeah, it can be a real marathon,
It sounds like it.
actually. This blog post doesn't actually say how long the whole thing usually takes.
Oh, interesting.
That might be something worth looking into or maybe asking your recruiter about,
Yeah,
just so you have an idea of the timeline.
that's a good point. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's talk about what they're actually testing you on, right?
Yes.
What are the make or break areas that Stripe is really zeroing in on?
So data structures and algorithms.
Okay.
That's absolutely fundamental.
Yeah.
Stripe processes tons of financial data
Right.
to do that efficiently and securely. I mean, they rely heavily on algorithms
Right.
for everything, from fraud detection to transaction optimization. The blog post mentions arrays, strings, linked lists,
All the hits.
all the hits. Yeah,
Classics.
they're the they're the building blocks of any good programmer's toolkit.
So brushing up on those is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
What about system design? I feel like Stripe is pretty serious about that too.
Yeah, system design is critical,
Yeah.
especially for more senior roles.
Okay.
Imagine having to design a system that can handle millions of transactions
Oh my gosh.
happening all at the same time,
Right.
and all while being secure and reliable.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of challenge that Stripe engineers face every day.
Yeah.
That's intense.
That's a lot to juggle. So we're talking scalability, distributed systems, all that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And of course, they want to see that you can code.
Right.
Clean, efficient code that you can write under pressure
Mm.
on a whiteboard
Yeah.
or in a shared environment.
I feel like that's always nerve-wracking because it feels like a different skill set than just coding on your own,
It is. And it's also about communicating your thought process clearly while you're doing it,
Right.
which we'll talk about more a little later. But it's not just about getting the right answer. They want to see how you approach problems.
Right. Like how you think,
Yeah.
if you're methodical, or
Stop.
can you break down a complex problem and analyze different solutions.
Exactly. Can you handle those tricky edge cases?
Yeah.
That might not be immediately obvious.
Totally.
That shows that you're a thorough and adaptable programmer.
Yeah. So it's more about thinking like an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
not just a coder.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how important is it to kind of be up on the whole financial technology landscape?
I think it's a bonus for sure.
Okay.
Showing understand the fintech world and where Stripe fits into that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just demonstrates a deeper level of interest. It tells them you've gone beyond just prepping for the interview
Yeah.
and have actually thought about the company and their mission.
Makes sense. It's showing up to a dinner party having actually read the book everyone's discussing, rather than just skimming the Wikipedia page.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get practical. How can our listener actually prepare for all of this? What are the best strategies?
Well, I think when it comes to practical prep, consistent practice is key,
Yeah.
especially for coding.
Right.
This post recommends platforms like LeetCode, HackerRank, and CodeSignal.
Mm.
They've got tons of coding problems that really mimic real interview scenarios.
Right.
It's like training for a marathon. You wouldn't just show up on race day without putting in the miles.
Right. You got to build those mental muscles.
Yeah.
It's not just about quantity, but quality too.
Right.
Speaking of quality,
Yes.
the blog post actually includes an example coding problem
Uh-huh.
about reversing a linked list. So
Yeah.
What's so important about linked lists anyway?
Well, linked lists are they're fundamental data structures that are used in like a lot of different applications.
Okay.
They're essentially a series of nodes, each
Mm.
containing data and a reference to the next node.
Mm.
Stripe, for example, could use linked lists to efficiently manage like queues of transactions that are waiting to be processed.
Interesting.
And this specific problem, reversing a linked list,
Mm.
that forces you to think carefully about how to manipulate those references.
Okay.
And it's a classic interview question. I mean, they'd ask it for a reason.
So would it be worth our listeners' time to like walk through this example problem?
Definitely. It's a great way to see how these concepts are applied in a practical context.
Awesome.
And if you really want to like dive into system design prep,
Okay.
Designing Data-Intensive Applications by Martin Kleppman.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a fantastic resource.
It's that's the one the blog post mentioned.
Yeah,
Right. I've heard good things. It seems pretty dense though.
it is. It's a long one.
What's like a key takeaway our listener could apply to, let's say, payment processing?
One key concept is understanding the trade-offs between consistency and availability
Okay.
in distributed systems.
Right.
So imagine Stripe needs to process a payment.
Okay.
They need to ensure that the user's account balance is updated correctly.
Right.
So they also need to make sure that the system is available even if one part of it fails.
Right.
That's a complex challenge that requires careful system design.
That's a great point. And then to like get more comfortable talking through those complex challenges,
Yeah.
the blog post really emphasizes mock interviews and even suggests like recording yourself, which seems a little awkward.
Yeah.
But I can see the value. Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah. I used to hate recording myself.
Yeah.
But honestly, it is one of the best ways to identify any quirks in your communication style.
Really?
Yeah, you might be surprised by like how much you say
It's eye-opening for sure.
or how often you kind of get sidetracked. Plus, you can catch yourself if you're, making assumptions about the problem.
Yeah.
Without like clarifying with the interviewer.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's like holding up a mirror to your like interview technique.
Yeah, exactly.
You'd rather catch the things before the real deal, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Another tip the post highlights is developing a structured approach to problem solving.
Okay.
It actually outlines an 8-step framework.
Wow.
Things like clarifying the problem, identifying constraints, brainstorming solutions, and so on.
Yeah. Having that mental checklist can be such a game changer in like a high pressure situation.
Yeah.
It's easy to get flustered and like jump around, but like having that framework to like keep you grounded.
It helps a lot.
Yeah.
Now, this might seem like a smaller detail,
Yeah.
but the blog post also mentions staying updated with Stripe's technology stack.
Oh, okay.
They use languages like Ruby, Go, and React, among others.
Right. So while you don't have to be like a master of every single technology they use,
All right.
being familiar with their stack like shows you've done your homework, right?
Exactly. It demonstrates initiative and a genuine interest in like working with their specific systems.
Right.
It can even like spark some interesting conversations during the interview.
Oh, yeah.
For example, you could talk about, any personal projects you've worked on where you've used similar technologies, or you could discuss new developments in those languages that you find exciting.
It's like finding common ground with the interviewer.
Yeah,
Like, you speak their language both literally and figuratively.
exactly.
Okay, so speaking of things to avoid, the blog post talks about common interview pitfalls.
Yes.
One of the biggest is neglecting to communicate your thought process.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to like get tunnel vision
Right.
when you're just, laser focused on trying to solve a problem. But the interviewer needs to understand how you're arriving at your solution.
Right. Like you got to show your work.
Exactly.
Even if you don't get to the perfect answer. Like demonstrating a clear and logical thought process, I feel like, is super valuable.
Oh, absolutely. Another pitfall is rushing to code before like fully understanding the problem.
Oh, yeah.
Remember this one interview, I jumped into coding without clarifying the requirements,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I ended up solving the wrong problem.
Oh, no. Did you, like, salvage the interview, at least?
Luckily, I realized my mistake early on,
Yeah.
and I was able to, like, pivot and solve the correct problem. But it was a valuable lesson learned.
Right.
Always take the time to clarify the problem, ask questions,
Yeah.
Consider different approaches before writing any code.
Right, it's like planning a route before a road trip, right?
Yeah.
And you might think you know the way, but it's always better to like consult the map,
For
or
sure.
make sure you're headed in the right direction.
Exactly. And don't forget about edge cases.
Yep.
Think about like those unusual scenarios that could like break your code.
Yeah.
How would your solution handle, like a sudden influx of transactions?
Right.
What if a user enters invalid data?
It's like stress testing your solution.
Yeah.
You want to make sure it can handle those like unexpected situations.
For sure. And testing in general
Yeah.
is crucial.
Yeah.
Don't just assume your code works perfectly.
Right.
Take the time to like walk through it with test cases.
Yeah.
That's something I wish I had done more of in my early interviews.
Can you give us like an example of a time when testing would have like saved you?
Yeah, one time I was asked to write a function to validate credit card numbers.
Okay.
And I like confidently wrote the code and I explained my logic.
Hmm.
But when the interviewer asked me to test it with a few examples, I realized I had missed a crucial edge case.
Oh, wow.
It was a simple mistake,
Yeah.
but it could have been avoided with more thorough testing.
So testing isn't just about finding bugs, but it's also about demonstrating your attention to detail
Yeah.
and commitment to quality.
Exactly. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for help if you get stuck.
Yeah.
It's better to show that you're willing to learn and collaborate than to just, struggle in silence.
Yeah.
Interviewers aren't expecting you to be a walking encyclopedia. They want to see how you approach challenges,
Yeah.
how you work with others.
Right. It's about being resourceful and having a growth mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? Nobody expects you to have all the answers.
Right.
But they want to see that you're willing to seek them out.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered the process, the like key areas, strategies. We even talked about pitfalls to avoid. So it feels like our listener is ready to kind of tackle those real-world problem examples from the blog post.
Right. It feels like our listener is like really starting to understand what it takes to ace a Stripe interview.
Yeah, for sure.
But before we wrap up, I'm kind of curious about something. We talked about Stripe's emphasis on system design.
And how they like operate on a global scale.
Right.
That's got to come with like some unique challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Like designing a payment processing system that works like seamlessly across different countries.
Yeah.
That's incredibly complex.
Right.
You're dealing with different currencies, varying regulatory environments, and even like integrating with local payment methods.
Oh, wow.
I mean, think about the challenge of like ensuring that transactions are secure and reliable.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with all those variables.
Right. It's not just about like technical expertise at that point.
Right.
It's also about having an understanding of like different cultures, economic systems.
Exactly. A system designed for like the U.S. market, for example,
Yeah,
might not translate well to, say, the Asian market.
totally.
You need engineers who can like think globally
Right.
and consider those nuances of different regions.
It's so fascinating how like software engineering intersects with these like broader global issues. It's not just about writing code in a vacuum. It's about like building systems that connect people and economies around the world.
For sure. And those systems need to be constantly evolving to keep up with the ever-changing landscape of financial technology.
So for our listener who is prepping for that Stripe interview, remember, this deep dive is just a starting point.
Yeah.
Like your own curiosity and willingness to explore further will be key.
Right. Don't be afraid to go beyond the surface level and like really dig into the complexities of, payment processing, system design, and the global fintech landscape.
That's what makes this field so exciting. There's always something new to learn, new challenges to tackle.
For sure.
And remember that the interview process is a two-way street.
Right.
It's an opportunity for you to learn more about Stripe
Right?
and see if it's the right fit for you too.
Exactly.
So go into that interview with confidence, ask thoughtful questions, show off your knowledge, and don't be afraid to let your passion for technology shine through. We're rooting for you.
We are. And even if this particular opportunity doesn't work out,
Right.
the skills and knowledge that you've gained will be invaluable throughout your career.
Absolutely. The tech world needs more bright minds who can think critically and solve complex problems.
Yes.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep exploring this fascinating world of technology.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll be the one designing those globally scalable systems that connect the world.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Stripe technical interviews.
You're welcome.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those brains buzzing.